All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the San Mateo High School PTO general meeting. It's Tuesday, September 21st, and this is our general meeting. First, I'd like to introduce our Spanish interpreter, Armando, and he will give instructions on how to get into the Spanish interpretation.
Muy buenas tardes, soy Armando Ramírez, el intérprete que va a interpretar en el español. Bienvenidos a esta reunión general de la PTO. En la pantalla, en la parte de abajo, van a ver un globo. Si oprimen en ese globo, le va a dar la opción de entrar al cuarto de español. Haga clic allí y eso lo va a llevar al cuarto de interpretación en español. Muchas gracias. Thank you, Mrs. Basso.
Thank you, Armando. It's always good to have you. I'd like to welcome everybody to our meeting tonight. This meeting will be recorded, so if you want to watch it in the future, it will be on our website. Tonight, we have Ms. Diana de Guzman. She is our lead wellness counselor at San Mateo High School, and she's here to talk to us tonight about coping with anxiety after coming back to school in person through COVID. I know a lot of our students are feeling the pressure of extra work and also actually just coming back to school after being a year at home and in the comforts of home. So I'm going to just hand it straight over to Ms. de Guzman. Thank you. Oh, you need to unmute.
I'm also going to share my screen if that's okay. I do have a presentation, so bear with me as I work out some technical difficulties. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Can you also see me still on Zoom?
Yes, we can.
Okay, okay, great. So as Sandra shared, our presentation tonight is regarding coping with back to school anxiety during COVID-19. And my name is Diana de Guzman. I'm the lead wellness counselor at San Mateo High School. And as the lead wellness counselor, we're a team of 4 wellness counselors at San Mateo, 3 of which are bilingual and speak Spanish. I myself can speak Tagalog as well as another language in the Philippines. And so I am also bilingual, but in a different way. A little bit of a background on me is that I have worked at San Mateo since 2007. In my previous role, I was a school safety advocate. And when the district created their own mental health and wellness program, I joined the district and then became a wellness counselor and now a lead wellness counselor. My background is that I received my bachelor's in psychology at UC Berkeley, and I received my master's degree in counseling psychology at University of San Francisco. And you have my contact information on the screen. I'll have it up at the end of the presentation as well, but you can also email me. So the topics that we're going to discuss tonight include how students are coping with stress during the pandemic, how we're supporting students and families with the anxiety of returning to school, some parent resources that are available to families, as well as an overview of the San Mateo High School Wellness Program and other district programs that can support. So how students are coping with the stress of the pandemic. When Arsenia asked me to speak tonight, I think everyone is aware that there is a lot of stress with coming back to school in person after being online or distance learning for quite a while. In preparation for this presentation, what we're finding is that teen mental health, because of social distancing and COVID-19 and isolation, has really come to the forefront. One of the surveys that I read said that 7 out of 10 teens are struggling with mental health, and that 8 out of 10 say that that their peers are also. So a lot of what we're also seeing in terms of our work with students is students sharing feeling anxious, feeling stress, having feelings of depression. And so we're definitely, frontliners in terms of at school in seeing the impact. So how students might be coping right now, as you know, teens may often ignore their feelings. You might notice if they're spending time alone, isolating, many of which might be more so on their phones or engaging in social media. I think a lot of them are trying to make connections online, learning ways to cope, both healthy and unfortunately unhealthy as well. But the good thing is that the stigma regarding mental health is declining. Like I'm noticing more and more students talking about their mental health, being more open about it, acknowledging when they're struggling, and being more open to support. And so I think that is a very good thing. What we're also seeing in terms of coping, and coping is the way that you deal with stress, what it is that you do. We're noticing that, adolescent marijuana and alcohol use didn't decrease. It actually kind of stayed steady. And this is something that's been found in surveys as well. And a lot of that may be, trying to cope, still having access to marijuana or alcohol. But in terms of other substances, in my research, I found that other things are declining in terms of vape. There's been some changes in the laws and as far as accessibility for youth in terms of age. And so I think that's also helped decrease that. Not to say that students aren't vaping or weren't vaping during shelter in place. We are, hearing that students, were or are. But other factors that come into play regarding substance use as a way to cope may be, dealing with problems with relationships at home or at school. If there's a history of substance abuse in the home, if there's abuse in the home, if there's stress or anxiety or depression caused by the isolation that a lot of people are feeling, if there's like the fear and anxiety of not really making connections with people or losing connections with other peers. I know that there was questions, or when Arsenia reached out to me, there were some questions about like street drugs. And I think I don't have a lot of knowledge of street drugs. I don't really have the statistics for San Mateo County, but what we found during 2020 or during most of the shelter in place or lockdown is that there was an increase in opioid use, or if not being able to access opioid or prescription opioids, finding other street drugs to kind of compensate, whether that's fentanyl. And then if people are using by themselves, they're more likely to overdose. And so overdose opioids did go up. Again, I don't have any stats as far as like San Mateo County or even San Mateo High School, but I did want to share that. So what you might see in terms of the teens that you have in your home, in terms of distress or anxiety or stress, is changes in mood. I know that sometimes that's hard to kind of determine because teens can be, also moody. But, paying attention to what's usual and what's unusual for your child, if they're usually, pretty mellow, you may be noticing more irritability, more feelings of hopelessness or rage, more conflicts with family and friends, changes in behavior or stepping back from, friendships or relationships that they've had in the past. You might notice a loss of interest in activities that they used to enjoy. concerns with sleep, either falling asleep or staying asleep. You may also notice changes in appetite, either weight gain or weight loss, focus and problems with memory, thinking, feeling less interested in school when maybe in the past they were really interested. You might also notice some changes in their appearance, maybe, not being interested in taking care of themselves, or a lack of personal hygiene. And so these are things that you can notice. Other things that I might share is, if you notice that your child is, refusing to come to school, and concerns about that, I think, that is also, definitely a red flag. And so how parents can support your teens or your high school students at San Mateo, I would say engaging them in conversations about what it's like to be back at school. We're now back at school for the first 6 weeks of the semester. And so I think right now is a good gauge to see where they're at, how they're feeling, what are some things that they're enjoying, what are some things that they don't enjoy as much, finding out what they're excited about. I like to advise parents to ask open-ended questions, so not questions that you would say yes or no, or because then I think a lot of what we're going to get is I don't know. And so, asking open-ended questions, just being curious about their day. And I think listening is really important, listening to what's on their mind, making sure to be present when you're having those conversations with your teen, acknowledging what they're feeling, even if you may not agree with it or you might have a different perspective on it, making sure that you're not correcting what they're feeling, because that can make them feel, kind of invalidated. And so just kind of, meeting them where they're at and acknowledging that it's hard. The other thing that I could share is that, as parents, we're the biggest role models for our kids in terms of how to manage stress. I myself am a parent of 3 daughters. And, I have to be mindful that I'm setting an example, while they might be anxious about going back to school, I may also have my own anxieties about going back into the workplace. And so that might, that parallel process might give me the opportunity to share how I take care of myself. And so as a school, we're really talking about self-care. Not only is this something that we're discussing amongst the staff members, like how do you take care of yourself? It's also something that we're engaging students in that conversation. I was in a presentation today, and that was one of the things that we talked about is taking care of yourself. How can you take care of yourself? Whether that's meditation, listening to music, that one's huge for kids, going for a walk, coloring. I think for parents, it's okay to kind of set the example and say, hey, when I'm feeling stressed, sometimes I go for a walk. Do you want to come with? And that might be an opportunity for, you to talk with your teenager about how they're doing, how they're feeling about school, how they're feeling about being in classes, about how they're feeling about making friends, if they've been distance learning for a few years and now they're back. And some of the follow-up questions might be, what can we do to help if you're noticing that they're feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling stressed, how can we support you? How can we make this easier? And then in those conversations, if you're feeling like, hey, my teen is really struggling and I want to reach out for support, definitely, you're able to reach out to the wellness team at San Mateo. We also have a great counseling team who we collaborate with all the time about how to support students. And so, reaching out to school counselors is also a great way to see how we can make this transition to back to school much more manageable for students. So self-care. And so some of the supports that we have in place for families include a free concierge service to all SMU HSD families in our district. It's actually something that even as staff members, we have this as a resource for us to use as well. And it's a free concierge service that helps connect family students to therapy, to family therapy within either your insurance network or if you don't have insurance, either no cost or low cost or sliding scale fees. If this is something that you're interested in, please let me know or let a school counselor know. There is a on our main website, it is a resource or a tab on there. Let's say your teenager in your home who attends San Mateo High School is okay, but you have another teenager at another school, or you have a teenager who you're concerned about, you can also use this concierge service for that. So it's for the whole family. So I really like this. It's, navigating the insurance world and who's in your network and who's not in your network and who's available. Can be really, really difficult, especially right now as the need or mental health needs are pretty high across the board. And so this is a great resource to our families. We also have a stand for teen mobile health van. You'll often see it parked in front of the PAC. They support our families and students with either immunizations or physicals. And so that's a great resource to us. If that's something that you want to access, please either visit the website or you can reach out to any school counselor, our health clerk at San Mateo, as well as any admin. They have a nurse practitioner that they work with. They have a social worker. They're a really great resource to us. We also have Parent Connect. Parent Connect is a resource to all of our families. We have two groups right now. We have a Spanish-speaking group, and then we also have an English group. You can join at any point. I know that the flyer says September 7 is the start date, and then the end date is October 19, but parents or guardians can join at any time. It's absolutely free. It looks like, a certain group, one group meets on Tuesdays and then another group meets on a different day. And it's from 6 to 8 p.m. But I think this is such a great resource to our families, just to know as a parent, that there's other parents out there and how you can support each other. And, maybe if you're not comfortable sharing, just kind of hearing another family and identifying with what they're going through and knowing you're not alone and learning those skills on how to help your teenager is really helpful. It is meeting via Zoom. And so I think that can make it more accessible to a lot of our families. If you need help accessing Zoom or creating a Zoom account, that's something that we can also do as well. So please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or any of the school counselors or admin. We're able to refer you. So I think we're also offering this Peninsula Healthcare District presentation, What Do You Say? Or Talking with Kids to Build Stress, Tolerance, and Motivation. I feel like this is a great kind of continuation of what we're all talking about tonight in terms of how to support our students and kind of knowing more about what you can say to them to help them at this time. I'm noticing a lot of students, sharing that they're feeling unmotivated. And so I think this is a great resource to kind of continue that support for our parents. So I want to encourage parents to attend this presentation. It's on October 7. And if you're interested, I will go ahead and email it as well to the PTO so they can share out. Another great continuation of this conversation regarding school reopening mental health is this youth panel that will be meeting next Tuesday on the 28th. It's going to be in English as well as interpreted in Spanish with a question and answer. I think what I really like about it is hearing directly from teens themselves how they experienced everything that's going on right now with the pandemic and coming back to school. If you want to watch it with your team, you're welcome to do that as well. But I think it's great information for us to have as parents and, knowing how to support them. And I will also share this with the PTO. At San Mateo High School, our program and our services that we offer for our students include drop-in appointments. And what that means is you don't need an appointment. You can come down anytime. There's drop-in hours available. During drop-in hours, there might be a wellness counselor that's available during that time. We have drop-in hours throughout the day in different periods. Every day of the week, there's different drop-in times that are available. You can encourage your student to say, hey, have you ever dropped into the wellness center? We're located in student services in the A building, which is right across from counseling. We're really close to the offices of Mr. Bell, Mr. Duenas, Ms. Navarro. But our wellness center is there. Any of the classrooms will have a drop-in hours printout that students can see, and teachers are aware that if students ask to go and see a wellness counselor, that they can do that without saying, hey, why are you seeing a wellness counselor? What's going on? And so they can allow them to leave. Students can also email, a wellness counselor or, come by the wellness center and say, hey, I want to check in. And that's another way to connect with us. We also offer individual counseling. What that looks like is a short-term model up to 12 sessions. We can meet with students either weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. But we are a short-term model, meaning, towards the end of that, we will either extend or refer out into the community, but it's definitely something that, is available to your students. If you're interested in that, please let me know. We also have group counseling this fall. We're running 4 groups. This is probably the most groups that I've had at San Mateo. And we really wanted to tailor it towards what we were seeing the needs of the kids that are coming back to school. So we have one group called Healthy Minds, Healthy Lives. This group focuses on more so anxiety, stress management. So it's, having students get together and talk about that and recognizing they're not alone and supporting each other. We also have the Calm group or anger management group. We're noticing that there's also, students experiencing anger and kind of learning how to manage that, right? Because it's normal to feel angry, but it's just how we cope. And so this group will focus on that. And I'm actually facilitating this group. We also have Girl Squad, which is kind of like a girl group, just to give space for girls to meet together and support each other. And then we have Bearcats Together, Not Alone. This group is a peer connection group. We wanted to offer this group so that, if students felt isolated or maybe don't really have that circle of support or peers or friends at school, this is a safe space where there's a facilitator who can help, create activities, and can help make those connections and build those bonds. So that is Bearcats Together, Not Alone. We also have a crisis response. We do post-vention or intervention with families. And then, of course, we have our Stanford Teen Mobile Health Van, again, for students to access and make appointments with. Some of the district programs that I think would would be really great for parents just to be aware of are our TUPE. And TUPE is our substance use support program. It's actually an award-winning program with a team of mental health therapists, and they're trained to work with students. It's free of charge. I think, this kind of really ties in nicely with our discussion about substance use or, self-medicating or concerns about how kids might be coping in an unhealthy way. And so this program helps kind of bring awareness, as well as working with kids to reduce use. It's totally free. If it's something that you're interested in, again, please let me know. On your screen, you'll see that the contact is Dr. Jessica Cadigan. She's the TUPE coordinator. But I do want to let you know that if this is something that you think might be a good fit for your student, or it's something that you're interested in knowing more about, again, please let me know. And I think that kind of leads us to the end of my presentation. I want to thank everyone for having me here. And I know that Arasenia said that we'll have space for questions. And so I'll take that. But you also have my contact information that I hope that you can see and you can jot down if you need to contact me.
Thank you, Mr. Guzman. So the websites that you mentioned for the Care Soleil and Stanford Teen Mobile, can we find those on the website for the Wellness Center if we just wanted to?
Yes. So if you go to San Mateo High School, as far as our website, and then you go under mental health and wellness, I believe, you will find those resources there.
Okay.
I am also happy to send those links to you, Sandra, if that's helpful as well.
No, as long as everybody knows where they can find it, and if they go to the Wellness Center, they would find the links to that, and also the programs like the TUPE and the vaping one. That's also located all in the Wellness Center website.
Yes, it should. If it doesn't, please reach out to me. I'm happy to forward those along to anyone who's interested. But if it's not on our San Mateo High School website, I will update those very soon. You may also find them on the SMU HSD website as well, which is like the district website.
Oh, the district website would also have those.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I'd like to say to anybody who has any questions, if you go into our chat box, there's a link there that you can click on and then just type in a question, and then I can read them off to Mr. Guzman. So I'll get started with some of the questions we've already had. Do you have any tips for a student who gets anxious around crowds of students? Any self-calming techniques?
Yes, I do. That's a great question. So some of the tips that I give students who get anxious around big crowds, which unfortunately lunchtime, brunch, hallways, those are times that things like that can come up. So I think, having someone with them who's kind of like their support. So that might be like their friend or buddy. I think can be helpful because they can kind of zero in on just that person and focus on them. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Or should I continue to share my screen? I can.
I think we already stopped sharing, so we're good.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, so I think that's great. There's also, in the past, pre-yonder, kids can listen to music. Unfortunately, right now you cannot. But, if you, during lunchtime, want to open your Chromebook, you can easily, put in your headphones and listen to music to kind of help calm you. Students can also access, certain apps on their Chromebook as well to help calm, their headspace. I have students who do meditation and some deep breathing, kind of visualizing themselves in a peaceful space. And that could be like the beach or, kind of like their favorite area. A lot of what I'm doing right now is giving students like fidget toys or, kind of arming them with something that they can fidget with. And that will help with anxiety, just having something tangible that they can feel. There's also grounding techniques that kids can try. And one thing that I really like using is like the five senses grounding technique. And so kind of like, what are five things that you see around you, naming that. What are four things that you can feel? What are three things that you can hear? Two things that you can smell, and then one thing that you can taste. And what I like about that is it kind of gets them out of their head and, kind of thinking about or overthinking or getting anxious and just really getting into their body and being present. So that's something that I've even had students try, like in the classroom. It's really easy, you can do it and no one knows that you're doing it. And, practicing that is really helpful. If you want, we can also, we also check in with students and kind of discuss, what are some strategies or tips that work for them, because everyone's different as well. I hope that answers that.
Yeah, that's great. I actually use that five senses.
Yeah, it's so easy.
I get so stressed when I'm driving in traffic. I actually start to have a panic attack, and I learned that a long time ago. And it's perfect because you just literally can look around and start doing the
yes,
and
and it really makes
panic.
you.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm glad that see how anyone can use it so easy.
It is. Okay, somebody says, thanks for hosting this. What specific actions are being taken by San Mateo Union High School District and San Mateo High School to address anxiety in the student population? And how are teachers being trained to recognize the symptoms? And is curriculum changed or changing to address this current phenomenon?
Wow, that's a great question, and there's a lot of components to that. So as I shared, we are running, groups to help, focus on anxiety or stress management. Regardless of what group you join, whether that's anger management or peer connections, all of those will also talk about coping. And so I think, that's something that we want students to use. So that's a life skill that we want students to have as they grow up. They become adults, go to college. We want them to know how to cope. The other thing that we're doing as a staff is constantly, anytime we get together and meet as a group, as staff members, we're talking about self-care. I think for me, while we're not, as we're talking about our own self-care as staff, I feel like that kind of keeps, the idea of taking care of yourself, mental health being on the forefront. And I know that a lot of teachers are concerned about their students' mental health. It's a lot of our referrals or the way that we do check in with students is that teachers are paying attention and noticing if a student in their classroom hasn't been coming to school, or has been looking down a lot, or seems unhappy, or wrote something in their essay, or seems isolated or not connected. So I would say that, our staff is very, very aware of, the anxiety of coming back to school and mental health. To the point that when they see me, they're like, you guys are really busy, because we know that a lot of kids need your support. And so for me, I feel like they know and they are aware. And so we're meeting students, where they're at. I would say we're providing a lot of drop-in hours, with our 4 wellness counselors that we have available. We want to, if there's specific needs that you're seeing as a parent that you feel like, San Mateo needs to address, definitely reach out to me so that we can, have that conversation or take that perspective or feedback. And then as a district, as you saw, we're offering a lot of presentations for parents and families to bring that awareness to the forefront.
Great. Okay, so I have 2 questions here that are kind of together, so I'm going to read them both to you. Can you recommend strategies for finding a great therapist for your child? not necessarily restricted by insurance. And somebody else says, I'm having a hard time finding a therapist for our daughter and son. Can I reach out to you for assistance?
Sure. Yes. I've had parents reach out to me in the past, or ask me for some referrals or people that I can recommend. My list is short because I feel like I don't want to recommend someone if I can't speak to their work or, how well they are with students. The other thing that I pay attention to is if I have students who are already working with a therapist and they're collaborating with, and if I'm hearing great feedback from that student, like, I love my therapist, they really get me, or, I really connect with them, or they're really helping me, I'll be like, who's your therapist? Give me that name. And so I can kind of build my little, list of people that I can recommend. And so, again, you're right. It's very hard to navigate. I'm happy to give any, names or referrals. But also, Care Solace is a great concierge service that can help you as well. The other thing that I tell families and students is, we're all individuals. And so maybe your first therapist, it might not be a good fit, right? But that doesn't mean you stop looking. All of us have our ways and our styles. I know my style is a certain way. And then, my colleagues might have a different style of their own in connecting with teens. So I think, recognizing that and telling students like, hey, trying a therapist out doesn't mean just like one time or two times. It might take a few times to kind of see what fits. But also, if it's not working, it's not working, and it's okay to try someone else. So yes, I'm happy to help support. We also have Care Solace. I'm here.
Okay. Somebody says, I think my child feels like they are alone in how she feels. I wish I could help her know that she's not alone. How do I make him feel okay to see a therapist?
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's a hard conversation to have. I think, acknowledge, you can use this presentation. Hey, blame it on me. Miss Diana at San Mateo High School said, you are not alone. There's also this panel of, teens and youth who are saying, we're also experiencing mental health. And maybe that might be a great way to kind of have that conversation with your child. Like, hey, you're not alone. People are talking about this. And because you're not alone, there's ways that you can feel better, including therapy. So, use this presentation as a way to have that conversation. I would encourage going to the panel, I believe on the 28th, and even watching it with your child and kind of seeing, how they feel about it. And that might be a great way to talk about it. I've also pulled in students and, with parents who are worried about their child and said, hey, mom's worried about you, let's talk. And sometimes, maybe they may not share with their parent, but they might share with me, but I've also been doing this a long time. And so I have my ways of kind of engaging students. And so I can also help, support that conversation about therapy or about, accessing support. It's hard. I think the first step to getting help is probably the hardest step, because you have to acknowledge that you need the help. And so, if there's any way that we as wellness counselors can help support that, with the team that we have at school, we're happy to do so.
Yeah, I guess that leads right into the next question, which is, how do I get my child to open up? Right. So how would you get your student to come and approach you, or even to talk about this?
Yeah. I think, maybe you don't get right into that. Maybe that's not your first conversation and being like, hey, open up about your mental health. Maybe taking those baby steps and just making the time to connect. We're all busy. Again, I'm a parent too. I'm busy. My husband, we're busy, but, making that time, maybe it's, hey, let's go on a drive to go to Target, or, come with mom or come with dad. We're going to go do an errand, and just kind of hanging out and spending more time so that conversation isn't maybe the first conversation, but it kind of leaves the door open to creating that communication that can be open, right? And seeing how they're feeling. And then again, you can use, if you're here tonight, that already, for me, I'm like, you get points because you're showing that you care. And, you can even say, hey, I went to this presentation tonight for parents. This is some of the things that they were talking about. What do you think about this? And if they're like, I don't know, it's like, hey, you don't have to tell me today, but I want you to know if you ever need to talk about it, or if something's going on, I'm here, I'm ready to listen. And then you're kind of planting the seed, right? Like that you're aware and you're kind of paying attention.
Yeah, just kind of opening the door so they know it's okay to
Yeah.
talk about it. Yeah, that makes sense. I hear it's normal for teens to hide out in their rooms. What can I look for to tell if she is doing drugs or depressed?
Yes. I have a teen as well, and so I can attest to that. I mean, it's their comfort zone, it's their cave, right? I think, one of the things that I had on the slide for red flags is, is there other behaviors changing? Are you noticing, more severe mood swings? Are you, do you smell something like marijuana or vape in their room? Are you noticing that they're not taking care of themselves? Are you noticing that they're not reaching out to their friends anymore, or engaging in things that were really bringing them joy, whatever that looks like, whether that's, something that, like a sport, or, hanging out with friends. Hey, how come you're not hanging out with so-and-so anymore? What's going on with that? I think, noticing whether they're more and more and more isolated and talking about that. Do you notice that they're not sleeping? Do you notice that they're losing weight or gaining weight? A lot of the students that I'm working with, because of COVID, haven't been to the doctor for maybe a year, just because people just haven't been doing that. And if that's something that you're concerned about, make the appointment for the wellness physical for your child, and mention those things. Hey, my child's hiding out in their room. What I like about that is, at the physical, is they do a questionnaire and the child fills it out, and that way, maybe their doctor has that rapport, or maybe their doctor can broach that subject with them, to see if maybe they are using, or maybe, they are vaping, or maybe they are depressed because on the questionnaire they marked these things. And they can also be a great resource to you. So, I mean, I think, those are a number of ways that you can kind of be aware, or, notice those red flags. If it's something that you want to reach out to wellness about and see if we can check in, we can do that as well. And just say, hey, parents are concerned. And, kind of noticing, how is it at home and how is it at school? Because sometimes, it's either the same, you're also noticing the same things at home and at school. And so we can kind of put those two things together. So I think those are a number of ways that you can go about it.
Okay. I just want to remind everybody, if you have questions, if you go into the chat, there is a link that you can click on, and it will lead you to a little Google form, and you can submit any questions. We have 2 or 3 more questions currently. Okay, the next question is, being back in school seems to increase my son's anxiety. I don't know what to tell him.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as we just discussed, letting him know he's not alone. A lot of students are feeling that way right now. Maybe, trying to understand what some of those triggers might be. Is it your first period class? Is it, is there something going on with your peers? Is it, just being back in person because, you haven't been in school for a while? So I think, having that conversation with your child to see, what is it about school that's making them feel anxious? Is someone bothering them? Sometimes that might be the case as well. and saying, how can I support you? What can we do as parents to help you? Who can we reach out to your school counselor? Can we reach out to wellness, right? Like there's resources there at school. Can we reach out to them to help support you? And then there again, remembering there's groups. Hey, I went to this presentation and I heard there's a group to help with anxiety or feeling panicked. What do you think about joining something like that? And so that so I think those are some things that you can share. Again, if you're worried about, your teen, please reach out. We can also check in with them as well. Maybe your your efforts to help them open up isn't successful, but maybe being in a different space with someone else who's not their parent might help them open up. And so that's something that, we can help facilitate or engage them in.
Okay. So if a parent reaches out to you, they can just email you and say, I'm worried about my student. This is what I'm seeing. Would you check in on them? And then you would find that student, pull them out of class at some point and meet with them? Is that how that usually works?
Yeah, I mean, we can do that. Of course, we would call the parent and kind of, hey, tell me more about what's going on. I mean, sometimes it's even students that we're already aware of, who's already on our radar. And then if parents are like, I don't want my child to know that I reached out to the school, because they're going to be upset. I mean, I've also told kids like, hey, your teacher's worried about you because they're noticing this, what's going on or how can we support? So, I mean, there's ways that we can help a child, access that support. But if parents have any questions or need support, we're definitely here to consult and access resources and kind of like brainstorm or be thought partners in that process.
That's good to hear. Thank you. Okay, how can a student whose primary language is not English or Spanish to get help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like, if they don't speak Spanish and they don't speak English, it doesn't mean that there's not resources available. Definitely, Care Solace is, what I like about that is it's kind of like a network that can help find therapists who speak a family's language, because they have a broader spectrum of providers. We also have, a language line if we need to, have an interpreter, on call, so that, or not on call, but on the phone to, help find out what's going on and support a student. But there is, resources in the Bay Area. And I think that's what we're really lucky having such a diverse community in the Bay Area that, we can also, refer. The other thing is a lot of therapists right now are doing Zoom. And so because of that, if you work through Care Solace, maybe you wouldn't be able to drive to another city because of traffic or, it being inconvenient, but because of Zoom, you're able to access more providers who might speak your language. And so I think I wouldn't see that as to deter you from getting help for your child. Yeah, we can help connect you as well, or do the warm handoff of Care Solace for that.
That's great. Thank you. It sounds like Care Solace is pretty cool. I'm gonna have to check it out just to get familiar.
Yeah. Check it out, please.
That's it for the questions. We do have one question that's COVID related.
Okay.
I don't know if you're able to answer that.
I don't know either, because I don't know what the question is. I can take the question and then maybe, share it with, Ms. Shu,
Okay.
or,
why don't we do that? Or direct the questioner to where they could get the information. So the question is, I know that the school notifies parents if their child has had close contact at school with someone who tests positive for COVID, sits near in a classroom. Does the school also ask the infected individual who else they might have had contact with outside of the classroom, and also notify these families, for example, their lunch friends, sports, and non-school social settings? I don't know how they could do non-school social settings, but I would think maybe they're thinking also about clubs, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely share this question with Sarah Devaney, who is, kind of our COVID guru or health person for our district. But my understanding is that there is contact tracing that happens, if you are COVID positive. And I don't think that's restricted to just who's sitting next to you in the classroom. And so, like for us as wellness, we're also, making sure that if we're meeting with students, because while we're not part of their daily schedule, we may also have contact with someone who's tested positive. And so I think, our district does a great job of finding out that information, and then contacting those students if we have their information to let them know that that they might, want to just be aware, of their symptoms or, what the next steps are. But yes, it's not just, who's in your classroom throughout the day. It could be, if you visited your counselor, your wellness counselor, but if there's more, I can also, I would direct you to our health clerk, either Renee at San Mateo or Sarah Devaney. You'll find her on the website for the district. Definitely, I think they're doing as best as they can to make sure that people are being notified if they are at risk and are close contacts.
Yes, I agree. They've been doing a pretty good job notifying people.
Yeah. I'm all like, is there another email?
Yeah, we just actually posted Sarah Devaney's email onto the chat, so you can contact her. She's very responsive.
Yes.
She'll respond pretty quickly. And Renee McAuliffe, her email address is up there also now. So yeah, you can always look through the San Mateo High School website or the district website to get any of this information. It's all pretty much accessible.
Yes.
So, thank you so much, Ms. Guzman. This has been a very informative session. I think you gave us a great deal of information to help our students, and hopefully as we get used to this new normal, after we got used to being distance learning and now we're back in school, people will start to be more comfortable again. But at least we have the tools and access to help from our school. So thank you, Mr. Guzman. And thank
you for inviting me.
Thank you everybody for joining us this evening. Have a great evening. Enjoy the rest of the night.
And thank you, Armando.
Yes, thank you, Armando.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I knew I was talking fast, so I feel for you. But thank you.
Armando's great.
Awesome. Bye-bye, everyone.